Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo. Bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jed Lee. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We're coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, historical neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so very honored and absolutely delighted that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends about the show and let them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, Audible, CastBox, Player FM, Boomplay, Ghana, wherever you find your favorite shows. Two wonderful guests for you today. Jacqueline Christine will be here to celebrate Mommy's Day Off, her debut picture book. And later on in the show, we'll meet Janet Sumner Johnson, telling us all about the Winterton Deception final word. Hey, it's Storyteller Chip, the storyteller from the United Kingdom, most famous for turning reluctant and resistant readers into recreational readers. Hey, Chip, great to have you back.
Thanks, Jed Lee. Now, Jed Lee, question for you. If a grown-up wants to help their kids move from picture books to those big old chapter books, what would you say they need?
Some kind of bridge would be good, like maybe short stories?
Totally agree. You don't teach a kid to walk across your living room floor and then expect them to walk all the way to the park, do you?
No, you drive them to a park a couple of times, and that way they can build up their strength when they get there.
Exactly. And that way they get to see just how amazing the park is, and so before long they want to walk all the way there.
But Chip, don't you think it's really hard to find good short stories for kids?
I did used to think that, but that's why I got together with my good friend Corky Paul. You know him, right? The award-winning illustrator of Winnie the Witch?
I know Winnie the Witch.
Right, well, Corky and I got together to start the Fables and Fairy Tales Book Club. Every month we send to your door a new collection of short stories guaranteed to appeal to all kids from ages 6 to 11.
Guaranteed?
Oh, okay, guaranteed is a strong word, but parents keep messaging us to let us know how everyone in their homes gathers around when these stories arrive. Kindergarten brothers beside their grade 6 sisters, beside their grade 26 parents, and they all enjoy them together. So maybe proven to appeal would be a better way of putting it?
You know, Chip, that sounds amazing. What kind of stories are they?
Oh, all kinds. Jed Lee, you'll get to discover who the real king of the jungle actually is.
Isn't that the lion?
Oh, no, actually, he's the king of the savannah.
Ah, of course. So who is the real king?
And you'll also get to meet the princess who gave birth to a dog, a cat, and a stick.
A stick? How did she give birth to
And the girl from Indonesia who survived being eaten by a giant.
Eaten by a giant? How in the world?
Oh, and the man from Japan who enjoyed a ride on a time-traveling turtle.
A time-traveling turtle? Chip, you gotta tell me.
And the horse who rode a boy home through the town.
Chip, stop. These stories sound incredible. How do I join the Fables and Fairy Tales Book Club?
Well, you just nip to epictales.co.uk/join and enter the code RWYK during checkout to get 30% off your first 3 months. Your family will then get a new book every month, handwritten letters from the authors and illustrators, and even invites to meet those authors and illustrators for exclusive online chats.
Authors and illustrators like you and Corky?
Absolutely.
So there you go, everyone. Head on over to epictales.co.uk/join to sign up for the Fables and Fairy Tales Book Club. And don't forget to use the code RWYK during checkout, and you'll get 30% off your first 3 months. Chip, that's amazing. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Jed Lee.
Join us right now from Lancaster in the great state of Pennsylvania. Our guest is here today to celebrate her really fun picture book. It's called Mommy's Day Off. Please welcome to the show, Jacqueline Christine. Hey, Jacqueline, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing. I love that welcome. There was so much energy in it.
Well, the energy is real because I'm excited for you to tell us all about Mommy's Day Off.
Awesome. Well, okay, Mommy's Day Off is my first book, my first children's book. It's about a little boy named Louis. His mother has a day off. She has to go help a friend out, and so he's left alone with his father all day. And so they get to do things that they never would do if Mommy was home. So that's a lot of fun. But in the end, it's all about him appreciating his mother and what she brings to the home and the father as well.
You know, this is kind of like a role reversal. I think we've celebrated a number of books that kind of talked about Dad and what Dad brings home, because so many times we forget about Dad, especially if you're watching TV shows. It seems like there are very few dads in TV shows aimed at kids. What inspired you to write this book from the mom's perspective?
Well, growing up, I grew up in a single-family household, so I only seen the relationship between a child and the mother, and I wasn't really exposed to the relationship between a father and a child. And when I got older and I had my own children, I was able to see that with my children and their father. And I have 5 children. I have 4 girls and 1 boy. And I don't know if it's the gender thing. I don't know if it's just my children, but all my girls, they were independent, like right out of the womb. But my son, oh man, he was such a mama's boy. He's always clinging to me. But when his father came, it was all about having fun, about playing. And I just wanted to, he's my real inspiration for the book. And I just wanted to show that and show that there is a difference between the mother and the father, and none is higher than the other. They're both important. They're both unique, and that we should embrace those differences.
In some circles of people, you'd get a lot of grief from acknowledging that.
Oh, yes. I have, and I've also had people, talk about the traditional family, because my book is based off of a traditional family of a mother and a father, and the father is usually out the house, and so when he's home, it's usually fun dad, and the mom usually gets the bad rap because she's the one bringing the rules and saying, no, you can't do this and no, you can't do that. But it's truthful for a lot of households. It's true for my household. And so I wanted to not only show a traditional family, but also a Puerto Rican traditional family, because growing up, again, I didn't have that. It was always, the nuclear family was always the mother, the father, 3 kids, and it was always the traditional white family. And to see a Hispanic family was like rare. And so I wanted to, just show that other parts of, we still here, the traditional family's still here. Not saying that there's anything wrong with any other family. I grew up in a single family household, but I just wanted to, show that in my story. That's my truth.
And, I really respect that. And we celebrate the fact that books can be mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. But I'm afraid because of all the kind of tribalism and the inability to agree to disagree politely that we're experiencing, it seems like some people have the opinion the book should only be windows into and representations and mirrors of certain types of families. And of course, that might have been true when I was growing up, that all we saw were white kids in kids' books and white families. And so we acknowledged that wasn't right and that was wrong. And so now we are really lucky that we're able to see into Puerto Rican families and Mexican families and Russian families and families from Ghana and South Africa, and that's beautiful. But we shouldn't reject the traditional family. We should also be able to have kids see themselves no matter what kind of family they're in.
Right.
Yeah. Being married to a beautiful Puerto Rican woman myself, I've sort of experienced, we're a kind of a bicultural family, but certainly with a very strong appreciation and love of Puerto Rican culture. Can you talk a little bit about what you think differentiates a Puerto Rican family from other non-Latino families and certainly from other Latino families?
That is a good question. That's a good, well, at the core of it, we're all the same. Mm-hmm. We're human. We're having a human experience. We all go through ups and downs. For me, growing up as a Puerto Rican, I call myself a New Yorican because I wasn't born in Puerto Rico. I was born in New York. I grew up around Spanish-speaking people, but I wasn't taught the language. So I kind of get the best of both worlds, the American side and the Puerto Rican side. Growing up as a Puerto Rican, our culture is very rich in food. We love dancing, we love music, we just love being loud, and we value the idea of family. And no matter what, you always know, my family has my back. Even if you was to go out in the street and you see another Hispanic, that's family, and they take you in as family. And you don't even have to be Hispanic to be treated as family. We don't see, usually, again, we don't see the color of skin because Puerto Ricans are really black, they're really brown, they're white, they have blue eyes, they have brown. I mean, we come in all shapes and sizes. We're a mix of African and Taino and Spaniard. So we have no place to speak as far as racism. So everyone is family. We just really big in love and opening our hearts and our homes to everyone. That's what's my experience as a Puerto Rican anyway.
It was funny when I married my beautiful wife, who is very much above, but I was really punching above my weight when I had her fall in love with me. A lot of my friends would say, "Oh man, this culture is going to be so different. It's going to be so hard for you." And I quickly discovered that, the language was different, and my wife's family ate rice instead of mashed potatoes. But other than that, and Puerto Ricans are much better dancers than my Irish family. But other than that, it was really, really similar. And, I quickly told my friends, dudes, we're all part of one beautiful human family.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. How was it? I'm curious as to, you told me that you wanted to share this perspective and this view into your family. But what was it that made you want to become a children's author?
Well, growing up, books have always been in my life. My mother, as a kid, she would read to me every night. Cinderella was my favorite story. As a teenager, loved books again, Goosebumps, Fear Street, R.L. Stine was like my hero. And then when I became a mother, I wanted to pass on that tradition of storytelling. And when they were little, I would just pick up books and read to them, and it just created this connection and this bond with them. And even now that they're older, we still have that foundation there, and we bond differently now, but it was the foundation we built just as simple as reading a story at night, having open dialogues of talking about the characters in the story, and I wanted to share that with other people. And in particular, I wanted to share it from the perspective, again, of a little Puerto Rican child, because when I would read to my children, there wasn't any characters that represented them. Now, again, they could relate to the characters. They didn't see the color of the character. They didn't see, the animals they can learn from animals. There's always a lesson to be learned. But I wanted to create one for them. For example, if we was to look at the stories now, when it comes down to representation within the Hispanic sphere, you see that the stories usually show a certain aspect of the culture. They might show like different holidays or traditions, but I wanted my stories to just show a little Puerto Rican boy, just like any other boy, living, you know, like any other human being would. Like, we don't open up Diary of a Wimpy Kid and say the story about a white boy, or Harry Potter's a story about a white boy. We don't care about that. We like the story. So I want my story to be, first and foremost, good, but then it's like, oh, he's Puerto Rican. It's just an extra icing on the cake. I don't want my stories to be solely, oh, I'm going to read it just because he's Puerto Rican. You know, so I just wanted to share that with the world. And so other families can also bond and connect over, you know, a good story.
Yeah. You know, the motivation that you had to write this book, to celebrate the bond that you built with your kids, that foundation that I can tell you is going to last forever, is the same reason that I launched Reading with Your Kids back in 2017. I knew that reading, there are all sorts of benefits to reading with your kids, and the kids learn to read and they learn vocabulary. I had no idea of how many benefits kids get when parents read to them. But I knew that the foundation, that the friendship and the relationship I have with my now adult kids, which is wonderful, and which my kids actually openly talk about, and how fortunate they feel that we are so close. That was built on a foundation of reading with them every single night and continuing to read with them as they became independent readers, and then, you know, shifting from reading with your kids to watching TV with your kids to listening to music with your kids and talking about it. And so I can absolutely relate to that motivation that had you write Mommy's Day Off.
Yeah, I mean, right now, my youngest was 10 years old. I have a 20-year-old. Oh, I forget their ages. Oh, my gosh. I have a 20-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 13-year-old, 11-year-old, and I just had a baby 2 years ago.
Wow.
And so I had to restart it all. And then being pregnant with her, I was like, wow, I miss those days. I really miss just getting in the bed with them and just cuddling and reading a story. And now I get to do it all over again. And so I'm excited about that.
Well, congratulations. I'm delighted for you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
It's been a journey. I have to relearn everything.
Well, everything has changed in 10 years. You know, you get these new strollers and everything that I couldn't. It looks like you need a degree in engineering to open up some of these things.
I still don't know how to put a car seat in the car.
So, you know, your experience as a New Rican is very similar to my beautiful wife's experience, and so similar to so many people of Puerto Rican descent. My father-in-law used to say all the time, he would sit me down and he said, Jed, if all the Puerto Ricans living in the United States who say they're going to move back to Puerto Rico actually move back to Puerto Rico, they're going to have to put a second floor in the island.
That is 100% true. Oh, man.
So how does, I'm curious, you know, my beautiful wife living with me here in Boston, New York City on a smaller scale and very diverse and whatnot, but how does it feel to be a New Rican in Lancaster, Pennsylvania?
Well, we actually have a really big community of Spanish people, Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, you name it, it's here. In the city of Lancaster, we're everywhere. We're like cockroaches.
That would not be the phrase that I'd use, but I appreciate that. It's again like my family. There are Irish everywhere, and
right.
And you know, I love, and I'm I'm kind of sure that there are some people who are listening to this who are kind of offended by this and horrified that we can kind of joke about our ethnicity and our background and acknowledge that there are some differences and as well as being some mostly similarities. But I really love talking to people who come from different cultures and learning about those cultures and seeing the differences. But in seeing the differences, it always very quickly leads to seeing the similarities, the things that we share.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, we're all human, having the same human experience. I mean, we might have differences in what we eat, how we talk, some of our belief systems, but we all come from the same being.
Absolutely. So now Mommy's Day Off is out in the world, and you are now an officially published author, and I'm sure your kids are, as we say here in Boston, wicked proud of you. Are you planning books 2, 3, 4?
I am. I'm planning a lot of other books. The next one coming out is about a little Puerto Rican Muslim girl. And it's about her going to school with the hijab for the first time. And it's about being brave and standing up for what you believe in and, you know, just living courageously.
That, I am fascinated by that. Is it how far along in the writing process are you?
I'm just waiting for the illustrations.
Well, you have an open invitation because I would love for you to come back and speak about that, and because I think it would be a very fascinating conversation.
Awesome. I would love to come back.
Yeah. Hey, in the meantime, we should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Mommy's Day Off and find out more about you.
Yes, you can go on my website. It's JacquelineChristine.com. You can also I have a free guide. It's called, I'm so sorry. I forgot the name of the guide. It's to help you connect with your child through storytelling.
Okay.
And it teaches you the significance of bonding and connection. And it also gives you 12 ways you can use storytelling for connection. So it's JacquelineChristine.com. You can also get the ebook version of the book on Amazon. And you can find me mostly on Instagram at the Jacqueline Christine.
Awesome. Hey, I have to ask you this. If you experience this, anytime I travel down to Puerto Rico, I am not fluent in Spanish. I can speak enough Spanish to get myself in trouble and then usually get myself out of it. But one of the things that my family in Puerto Rico, they always do is, now it's more the friends of my family in Puerto Rico. When they see me and they go, "Oh, a gringo, come here, I want to teach you a word. It's a very powerful word." And I know exactly what they're going to do. They're going to teach me a very bad word that I already know. Does that happen to you, being a Puerto Rican who doesn't speak Spanish? Is that something that happens to you very often?
No. When people see me, they know that I'm Spanish, so they'll talk to me in Spanish first, and I'll say, I don't know Spanish. And then they'll either have one or two responses. They'll be like, really? Okay, and then they'll talk in English. Or they'll say, what kind of Puerto Rican are you? But I understand a lot of Puerto Rican. Like, I can understand a conversation. I just can't speak it.
I appreciate that. Hey, you know, I back in November, I spent the month of November touring El Salvador with a group called Clowns Without Borders and performing for people all over the country. And everywhere I went, people, when they discovered that I was not fluent in Spanish, and I would always say to them, "Oh, but my beautiful wife is from Puerto Rico," and their response would be, "Well, Puerto Ricans don't speak Spanish."
No, I can understand. Most of us we're losing the Spanish language. It's sad, but it's true.
Well, you know, I want to encourage everybody. Most of this conversation should have been off the recording, but it's fun. I'm keeping it on. I want people to go out and to check out Jacqueline Christine's website, check out Mommy's Day Off, and I also want you to check out the beautiful island of Puerto Rico. It is a beautiful island. It has been knocked around really bad by Mother Nature lately between Hurricane Maria and the earthquakes that followed and the pandemic. But the people, the culture, the food, the music, it's such a wonderful place, the Isle of Enchantment. And so consider this an invitation from a New Yorican and a wannabe Rican.
Everyone's welcome.
We've had a great time speaking to the author of Mommy's Day Off. Our guest has been Jacqueline Christine. Hey, Jacqueline, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you again for having me.
Are you looking for a new book to add to your family library? Well, I have great news for you. Lynn Podrat, the award-winning author of Listen to Me, How My Down Syndrome Brother Saved My Life, has once again shared with us her family and a brand new book. It's called My Sister Wants an Elephant. Randy's sister wants a what? And his mom isn't flat out saying no? My Sister Wants an Elephant is a true story of two siblings who team up together to convince their mother to let them own a couple of wild animals as pets, and a mom who just might be persuaded. This book is full of humor and fun. It's a good lesson in not giving up on your dreams, no matter how truly wild they may be. Get your copy today. My Sister Wants an Elephant by Lynn Podrat. Hey, my friends, are you looking for a fantastic book that's going to inspire your kids to check out the STEM fields? Be sure to get your copy of Astronaut Aquanaut, How Space Science and Sea Science Interact. Journey from the deepest trenches in the ocean to the farthest humans have ventured into space, and learn what it takes to explore these extremes. You might be surprised just how similar the domains of astronauts and aquanauts really are. I love this book. You have to check it out. Astronaut Aquanaut, written by our Dean of all things STEM and STEAM, Jennifer Swanson. We are going to have a great time this evening. Our guest is coming to us from Utah. She is here to celebrate her latest middle grade novel. Is called The Winterton Deception, Final Word. Please welcome to the show, Janet Sumner Johnson. Hey, Janet, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much, Jed, for having me on the show. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm really excited to have you on. I think we're going to be talking about a lot of different things tonight, but we should start by letting our listeners know what The Winterton Deception is all about.
The Winterton Deception is about two kids, twins, Hope and Gordon, who discover that they're part of the Winterton family. They never knew who their father was. They dig in their past, and they've been dirt poor their whole lives, and the Wintertons are massively wealthy. So Hope wants nothing to do with them, but Gordon is determined to know more of his family. So he kind of pushes things and gets them invited to this Winterton family spelling bee that they host every year as a charity event. Pretty soon they're at the mansion with the family and the family Winterton spelling bee. And not only are they competing for the prize of the spelling bee, which would totally change their lives if they won it, but they also were thrown into a clue hunt that the dead matriarch, Jane Winterton, put together before she died to search out what happened in the past with Hope and Gordon's father when he died before they were born. What happened that night? What secrets is everyone holding about that night? So it's a chance for them to learn about their past, learn about their family, and find out who they are, and also win an amazing prize for this manuscript that they're on the hunt for. So it's a lot of puzzle mystery. It's a lot of spelling. It's a lot of family and a lot of fun, I think.
It sounds like a lot of fun. One of the things I think that's so much fun about the middle grade age is that it really is kind of the first time where kids are diving into stories that have multiple layers. It's
Yes.
just not that 600-word picture book that is about that one story. It's like this, and then we go this way and that way, and so very cool.
Yes, and I love that about middle grade, where you start to, it kind of prepares kids for what level they're ready for. Are they ready to dive into the deeper themes that we can throw into that, or do they want to just follow the main story lines as they happen? So I think that that layering is fascinating, and it gives so much room for discussion on themes and on stories, and for kids to learn and grow, because I feel like stories are how kids learn how to behave in life.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and this seems like a book that is full of potential discussion, starting with how would you feel if you didn't know your dad or your parent?
yeah, and I think there are a lot of kids who are in that situation, that they don't know who their parents are, or they didn't grow up with them. Maybe they have a name, but they don't know what they were like. They don't know their history. And I think that can be something that is, I don't know, I feel like it can be an anchor when you know who you are and you know where you came from on so many levels. So yes, definitely. I think a lot of kids hopefully will connect with that.
Yeah. You know, as you were talking, my mind works in many ways. I just go off in different directions. Sometimes people are talking about spaghetti, and I'm thinking about jelly beans. But, you know, you're talking about Hope and Gordon and, you know, discovering that they're part of this larger family. And Gordon is kind of into it, while Hope wants nothing to do with them. And I guess maybe it was something I saw on social media that, you know, there are a lot of adopted kids out there who don't know who their natural parents were. And some of them are like, hey, that's cool. I got lucky. I have these people who raised me as their own, and that's really awesome. While on the other end of the spectrum, there are kids who are like, no, I was taken away from my parents, and I resent this family that raised me, and I want to find the people I was born to. I don't think either reaction, I'm not there, so I can't judge either reaction.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think that it's important to remember that there is no single way to react to any given situation. And we need to respect, just because we reacted one way, we need to respect that others are going to have a different experience than we had. And I've seen, like you, I've seen both sides of that spectrum, those who are really interested in finding out who their family is, and those who, you know what, I'm good where I'm at. They abandoned me. I don't want to know more about them. And both of those are legitimate responses to that situation. Unless we're in their shoes, we can't decide what's best for them.
Yeah. And I think that that's a really important discussion to have with our kids. This idea that, you know, we all have a different perspective. And we look at the world, even though we're looking at the same thing, we're looking at it through a different set of lenses, a different set of experiences. And I think once kids understand that, then I think it really can facilitate us having conversations that'll help us grow closer together, as opposed to arguments that are going to push us apart.
Absolutely. It's something I feel really strongly about. We can have different opinions and still be connected and be friends and family. We don't have to agree on everything. And I feel like learning to respect another person's point of view is such a key part of making the world a peaceful and nurturing place for people.
Yeah. Can I take you down to Washington? There are some politicians that should probably read this book and talk about it with you.
Yes, I'm there. I agree with you.
One of the things, and going along these lines, that you said that you wanted to talk about was this idea of forgiveness and how important it is. And that's an area that it really seems like our society, our culture is really struggling with these days.
I agree so much. We seem to have this mentality that you messed up, you are out. We cancel you. We don't want to see you anymore. You are not allowed to make mistakes. And frankly, we all make mistakes. If all of us were cut off for one mistake, and certainly there's varying degrees of mistakes, but even people who make big mistakes, who even go to jail or prison for a mistake that they've made, what happens after they get out? If we cut them off and say that they're horrible, we don't want anything to do with them, then they're just going to go back to what they were. We need to give people a chance to have that forgiveness, to change and to become better. And I think that that's something we should be learning early on, is to recognize that we are all human. We all make mistakes. And certainly forgiveness doesn't mean that you put yourself in a position to be hurt or others in a position to be hurt, but it frees you from that. Hatred it's a weight. It's a weight on your shoulders. It frees you from that, and it allows the other person to change and to grow and to become better. And isn't that what we're all trying to do, is become better? Hopefully that's something I really hope that kids, they're the hope of the future, really, aren't they? Mm-hmm. That they're so good at forgiveness. They're the ones setting the example most of the time to help us learn to be more forgiving of other people and their mistakes.
Yeah, it really is. It really is true. And, the younger grades and, maybe going into 5th to 6th grade, you can, at least for me, because I grew up in the city and I was a guy and I was a dope, and, I could have a fist fight with a friend of mine in the morning, and then we're having ice cream together and playing baseball in the afternoon, and we forgot about the fact that we fought, and then maybe we fight again the next morning. But we were able to kind of put it aside and forgive and move on. One of the things I think that's so important is for kids to understand how holding on to that anger, it really hurts us much more than it hurts somebody else.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think we forget that so many times. We feel like that's protecting me, that grudge that I'm holding against them is protecting me from getting hurt again. And that's not what it's doing. It's hurting you. It's holding you back. It's preventing you from feeling free and moving forward and even growing a lot of times. So I 100% agree with that.
I'm curious, where did the inspiration for Hope and Gordon come from?
I've thought a lot about this, and I think that she's not me, and I'm not Hope, but I feel like there are a lot of pieces from my past that I can see, like I can hold a grudge like nothing. And this is a lesson that I've been learning my whole life, that's hurting me, is something that I'm trying to be better at and be more forgiving. And I've had great examples in my life of people who have been that way, and I see what that gives to them. And so Hope and Gordon, a lot of it came from my head in trying to create the characters. They were actually the last two characters I created for this book. I created the Wintertons first and then created the characters that I wanted to struggle with, I wanted them to struggle with the Wintertons. But, there's definitely a lot of myself in there, and I'm certainly not as smart as as Hope is, but I can hold that grudge, and I know where she's coming from when she's so angry all the time, because I've been there before. I've felt that, and it's not a happy place. It's not a place that you want to spend much time in. So
and there are a lot of kids out there who are angry, and a lot of kids out there who have reason to be angry, and and you can understand it and you can empathize with them. Hopefully they'll find somebody in their life that can help them deal with that anger and put it in the past, find out how to forgive whoever hurt them, forgive themselves. I find it fascinating that you created the Wintertons before Hope and Gordon. I'm always really fascinated at creators' process. And I don't think we've ever spoken to somebody who kind of drew the background, if you will, before you drew the main subject.
It was definitely a backwards way to write this book. I knew that I wanted to have a woman who needed that second chance, who had made a lot of mistakes in her past, and just that redemption arc is what I was looking for. And so I think that led me to create Jane very first. She was the first character, and then I built her family around her. But, you know, sometimes when you're exploring an idea, you don't necessarily know what the story is until you've explored. And this particular story took me a lot of exploration to find how I wanted to tell this forgiveness story, this story of redemption. And it needed to come from a point of view that was not an adult. And it needed to come from an outside perspective, someone who could give Jane that perspective that she needed to, even the impetus to change, that force that makes her realize, what have I done? She needed that moment of awareness, and they provide that for her. I probably wouldn't recommend writing a book with the surrounding characters first in most cases. But in this particular book, Jane's so key, even though she dies at the beginning, she's so key to the story because of that forgiveness. And in a way, Hope is reliving her mistakes by pushing people away. And so I feel like it became a really nice echo to kind of see that, will Hope be able to make better decisions? Will she be guided? Can she find those things that will lead her to get past that wall that she's put up against everyone? Yeah. So, it was definitely not the usual way I write novels, but
well, it sounds like it's a very successful way for you in this case, anyways. I'm curious, as you were creating Jane and her family and this landscape, did you take a moment to create each character and kind of create and write a backstory for each character, and then all of a sudden go, here's the stars, Hope and Gordon?
Yes, I mean, that's exactly. I've got a notebook full of background history for each of the characters. And I feel like that really shows. I've never done that so specifically. And I feel like it shows because those characters, they have purpose. I know who they are. I know their struggles, where they came from, why they're acting the way they do. And it did. Hope and Gordon were the last ones. I know I wanted some outside people, and I got down to the youngest son. I'm like, okay, they did not grow up with the Wintertons. And I think that was pretty much the case. I looked at that and thought, that's what I need, is these characters who did not grow up in that, who are going to help them overcome it. And, I mean, it definitely was a process. Yeah. But yeah, seeing that they were outside of the Wintertons and the opportunity that gave to give that contrast, was really fascinating to play with, actually.
Yeah. You know, we've talked to a lot of authors about where they find stories, and, I know famously Jane Yolen, who's written over 400 traditionally published books. You know,
she's amazing.
there are stories everywhere. You just have to open up your eyes. But in this case, instead of Jane's, example where you're walking in nature, you're walking in a city, and you're looking at the things that are around you, you created this world. And what a neat kind of process. It's like, okay, I'm going to start from scratch. We're going to start here, and we're going to build it up. And you're just meeting characters along the way as you go, without like kind of an end goal in sight. What was it like when you were meeting the characters? Was it like, oh, this is like my old friend. I've been searching for you.
I started with, This particular case, sometimes it does feel like this old friend, like Jane, she felt like that. I felt like I knew her from the get-go. I happened, when I started this book, I was working as a volunteer on a spelling bee, an adult spelling bee for a fundraiser for our library. So I was thick in working in a spelling bee already. So I created Jane, and I realized I was doing so much work on creating words and lists, and it was so fun. I thought, that's what I want to do. And those two characters, Jane and that concept, collided. And so that kind of shaped Jane. I knew she was going to be a dictionary owner who created this fun new dictionary. And I knew that she was going to love Jane Austen. Like she was kind of like, as soon as I put those ideas together, like who she was really came together. And in some ways it's sad, like when you see the mistakes she's making, because you love these characters so much. You're like, oh, I don't want you to make that mistake, but you did. Yeah. But some of the other characters, it was a lot more digging and looking at, okay, so we have Jane, and she has these children who would have grown up in a home where she started out this great person, but slowly she's moving more towards work, more towards earning money and building this empire that she has, and spending less and less time with her family. And what would that do to her kids, especially the oldest, who had her attention at the beginning? What would that do to the youngest, who probably never had her attention? And really looking at those influences on them and how that would affect them and the opportunities that they had growing up in wealth. So, after Jane, it was a lot of discovery and looking at their situations. But, in some ways it does feel very organic because, as you start to form them, they really feel like, I feel like I know this family. I feel like this family, is real, and I could go walk down the street and talk to them, but, they are not.
As you're, I think sometimes when somebody hears an author or creator sit down and say, oh, I was really surprised what this character did. And I can almost hear the listener say, you're writing this story. What do you mean you're surprised what the person did? You're creating this. But I kind of know when I'm doing my educational magic shows, there are many times I'm on stage and something will come to me, and there have been many times when my beautiful wife has seen a show and I come off and she goes, so where did that come from? And I'm like, I don't know, it just came and it was there and I used it and I didn't get in trouble saying it this time.
That's so funny.
What's that? Isn't that such a neat thing to happen to a creator?
Oh, it is my favorite part about writing. And, my theories on this is that my subconscious knows way more than I know. I can put down what I think should be there, but my subconscious is working in the background on a lot of these things that I know that I haven't really thought about, but they come out in your writing. And so often there'll be a situation where I need something, I need to fix something, and I realize like the trail has been there the whole time. It's leading me to this point. And it's really hard to describe to people who don't write that I'm not in control, or a character does something that I did not expect because I'm thinking with my logical mind. But people in a situation, you don't always plan for that as the writer. And then you get thick in that situation and you're writing it and you're like, that's not what they would do, what I thought they were going to do. To make it realistic, like to have these, people, and I feel like I'm a little jumbled because it's really hard to describe, but that's our job as authors, is to understand people and how they would react and try and create that.
Yeah. There's no need to apologize for not being able to, it's a thing and we don't know where it comes from, but I'm wondering, is there something that you can suggest that maybe a young author, an aspiring author, a kid who thinks they might like to write, is there an exercise or something, or some kind of meditation and that they can do before they write that might help them get into that zone?
Less meditation and more, what I find helps is free writing before I write. Just kind of stream of consciousness. Like maybe even I'm going to write about this. Maybe even start thinking about what I'm going to write about. I'm going to write about Jane Winterton today, and here's what she did, and here's what I think. And giving myself that little bit of free write. I actually like to do it at the beginning and the end of when I write to kind of start me into the next day. But I feel like free write kind of puts you in that zone where words start to come. And most of my stories, when I start to write, that's how I start, is I start with a free write and I start to see the story, and then I can begin with chapter 1, or, okay, this is what I'm trying to tell. So, free write, just let your brain wander, let you put down words as you're thinking about a story. I've even started where I wasn't sure what story I wanted to tell, and by free writing, I found it. So that's a really powerful tool, is to kind of give your brain free rein to come out in ink on the paper.
So even if you're just sitting there saying, I don't know what I want to write, but I heard this lady on a podcast, and this sounds like a stupid idea, but I'm going to try it anyways, and just write that stuff down. It just starts coming, and then all of a sudden, boom, a masterpiece, a New York Times best-selling novel is going to be coming out.
Boom, absolutely, that masterpiece. But yes, I mean, my very first book, that's how I started it. Uh-huh. I didn't know how to write a book, but I knew how to, just take what I was thinking and put a pen on paper. Next thing I know, I was telling the story. It just loosens something up in the brain that I think that we put, inhibitions. We have inhibitions that prevent us from being free and letting things flow. And when we start the process and stop worrying about doing it perfectly and doing it right and getting each sentence perfect, and we just let ourselves write, it's really freeing, and creativity suddenly can take over.
Yeah. So I think that's right. I think there's somebody in my life that is constantly editing himself as he's writing from that first draft. And sometimes the first draft, it's going to be messy, and it can. It just go for it, write it, and then you can go back and you can paint the corners and clean the places that you shouldn't have painted.
Yeah, oh yes. First draft especially. I was like your friend. When I really got into writing, I was going to make every sentence perfect. I was going to make it so I did not have to revise when I went back. And that's impossible because so many ideas build as you write. And I didn't realize that at the time, but now I have a lot better understanding. And so when I write first drafts, constantly just telling myself, don't stop, just keep going. Doesn't matter if it's good. Doesn't matter that doesn't quite make sense yet. Just move forward, just put words on the paper. And when you have something to work with and fix, that's when the magic starts to happen. But first draft is just about letting yourself tell a story without stopping.
Yeah. I love that. This has been a fascinating conversation, and I know the Winterton Deception's final word is going to be a fascinating read for kids and for families. I think there's so many different conversations that we've talked about, and I think so many more. Janet, where can we go to find out more about you and find out more about all the books that you've written?
I have a website, janetsumnerjohnson.com, so you can read more about me and see all the books that I've written there. I'm also on Instagram. Also, Janet Sumner Johnson is my handle. I'm on Twitter a little bit. I guess it's X. Excuse me. I'm on X a little less. That one, though, Janet Sumner Johnson was too long, so it's at Ms. Verbose on X. But those are the main places that you can find me and read more about my books and about what I'm thinking and what I'm doing.
We've had a great time speaking to the author of The Winterton Deception, Final Word. It is the second in the series, and our guest has been Janet Sumner Johnson. Janet, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much, Jed, for having me. This has been a great conversation.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids. In fact, we hope you've enjoyed it so much that you might be inspired to write a 5-star review on Spotify or iHeartRadio or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to Reading with Your Kids from. It would really help us out. It would really help more people find out about the show, which would mean more people reading with their kids. So please consider doing that. We'd love for you to join us for the next episode of the podcast, and also join us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram, and at Jedley Magic on X. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, want to start by thanking our guests, Jacqueline Christine and Janet Sumner Johnson. I want to thank my incredible team, and what a team I have for this summer. Rory Grady, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Judy Hu, Stella Charay, Hannah Bosange, Alyssa Montiero, Julia Lipman, and Devin Hill. Of course, I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me, but most of all, we want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.